Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's exciting episode of the Lab Services and Point of Care Testing Show with your star, Kristin Tallent here. This week, we talked about some basics last week of just kind of why it's important to the pharmacy world to consider future of pharmacy pieces. But Kristin really wanted to jump in this week and talk about some of the basics of CLIA and CLIA waiver things, so you can get an idea of why you don't have to be scared of these words that we haven't heard in the pharmacy world before. off to you, Kristin.
Yes, Kevin, it's good to see you again this week. So, we're hearing this term CLIA so often now with pharmacy and the shifting that we're doing. And it's really just CLIA is this kind of umbrella term for what's regulating laboratories. That's it. So your LabCorp, your Quests, anybody who's doing any type of lab processing, they are some level of a CLIA laboratory. And so what we're talking about pharmacies and pharmacists doing is becoming CLIA waived laboratories, because there's waived, there's moderate, there's high complexity. And whenever we get past waived testing, then we have more personnel requirements, all kinds of additional requirements. So what we're talking about really is CLIA waived testing. And what that allows you to do is offer tests at the point of service. You have a person right in front of you, you can test them, and then you can give them results typically within about a half hour or so. So that's really what CLIA is.
Okay. And I think that's perfect just to know, we in pharmacy have tons of regulatory bodies, right, that we're used to having to comply with all the standards they put in place. For us, oftentimes I think of, compounding, right? So we have USP, 795, 797, et cetera, that are saying here are the regulatory components. But CLIA, on the other hand, Kristin, if we were a CLIA lab, is CLIA somebody like the Department of Health that's going to come through and inspect, or are they just putting out the standards that then each state is trying to comply by and hold people to?
Kevin, good question. So the CLIA laboratories that's how you apply to become a CLIA laboratory, but really they're regulated by the FDA, the CDC, and CMS. So I know let's just keep it very simple. Every state has different laws, they can make them more strict, just like our boards of pharmacy. They're different in every state. We can pretty much do the same things across, states. But there are some states that are a lot more strict and kind of restrict our ability to do certain things. Same thing when it comes to testing.
Okay.
And so we need to not only realize that, number one, the Board of Pharmacy is not the one who is regulating any of these testing services.
Yep.
But number two, that it can vary from state to state. Now, I would say 85% of states just allow you as a pharmacist to follow CLIA regulations, and you can go, open up your own CLIA waived testing facility or bring it into, maybe a site that you're already working in. You can already do that as a pharmacist in most states.
Wow. So Tell me this, where's the line in the sand, Kristin? There's versus CLIA and the different levels of CLIA, how sophisticated, calibrated, technical these laboratories are. And then there's CLIA waived. And so where is that dividing line for us?
Yeah, so that's actually, the FDA puts out these lists. So they're FDA approved, all these tests, all these CLIA tests are FDA approved tests, and they're specifically approved for waived usage. And so there's a whole list of FDA approved CLIA waived tests. And so that's what I mean by, most states, you can just do any of those tests that the FDA has approved as a waived test, you can perform.
Got it.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Okay. So I know that in your
cool.
channel that we'll drop some on all that data and all that information, here's the list of waived tests that you can kind of participate in, where people can get a better idea of what can I do? What's kind of in that scope? Because I feel like, Kristin, that we hear CLIA waived and everybody goes, okay, CLIA waived testing. What happened from going from 20% to 70 to 80% of folks using CLIA waivers? It was only for a couple tests. And it was only because of a very specific incident that we had that, some people call the pandemic. So because of that, we made some changes, but there's so much more that can be done inside of the CLIA waive space. Can you tell us more, Kristin, about since there's so much more to do and we can kind of open up more opportunities, how is like going through that CLIA waiver process? You said lots of states allow you to be able to do it. How do you find that out? And then how do you become CLIA waived so you can feel secure and moving forward with these tests?
Yeah, so that's one thing that's kind of where we start in the channel is what state are you located in? How do we get our CLIA certificate? How do I fill out this application in order to get my certificate? What test should I put on there? All of that. But really, I think the big thing people need to understand is that this goes way past the pandemic. And we kind of touched on that last week. But where I'm kind of seeing it shift is, COVID, flu, strep, RSV, A1C, lipid panels, fasting glucose levels, INRs, H. pylori, like those are just to name a few. And then that doesn't even take into consideration the whole host of at-home tests that you can offer, regardless of whether or not you're a CLIA waived lab. It also doesn't take into consideration all these other kind of testing things that you can start doing. It's pretty much just, I want to teach people how to use point of care testing, not so that we've backed ourselves into a corner and we're stuck doing these CLIA waived labs, but we can now use overall testing as a revenue stream and as a service line that we're providing to our communities.
I think it's brilliant. So if people want to learn more about like CLIA and CLIA waived testing and how to apply for your CLIA certificate, all of those kind of things, you obviously could go to Kristin's channel and be able to learn a whole lot more. But when it comes to someone just getting started, let's say that this isn't someone that has a CLIA waiver that is in place, the process, how long it takes, those kinds of things, Kristin, to be like, it's going to take me too much time. Like everybody hears a waiver or a certificate and thinks, it's like you and I having late night conversations about all the things that we're going to do clinically in this world. Like how much time do we have? Like we're moving kids back and forth to school. We're running multiple businesses. Some of the pharmacy owners out there, they're trying to manage all the employee things that they have their 9 to 5 plus their 5 to midnight, they're doing. So how much time does it take? And what's kind of the just general overview of the process?
Yeah, and I get it. Like you guys everybody, we're all busy. And that's why we're here. That's why we're doing what we're doing, because I have already done all of this work. Like I've already asked all the questions that you're asking and I've figured it out, and I just want to help you. It is literally testing on a silver platter. Let me just help you launch it and make money and stop wasting your time spinning your wheels. Because I can, instead of you trying to figure out what you put in this application, I can have you have it filled out in literally 15 minutes. Put it in the mail. I'll tell you where to mail it, depending on what state you're in. And it's in the mail. And then during that waiting time, typically, and again, this really varies state to state, but we are at the mercy of each state to approve the application, right? So what that process, that time frame looks like, we're dealing with the government. So it could be anywhere between 2 and maybe 8 to 12 weeks. I would say 12 weeks is worst case scenario. Most people have that CLIA waiver approved within a month. But during that time, when we're working together, we're being smart. We're setting it all up. So then when your application is approved, you get that approval, you are ready to buy your tests. You know exactly what you're buying, who you're buying it from, how much it's going to cost you. You know what workflow you're going to be doing. Everything is set up. You literally just need the supplies and you're off to the races. So typically It's like a month process, and it doesn't take that much time per week to be doing it, especially if we're working closely together. Like it really is not that complicated. I put it together the way that I did so that I'm taking the weight off of your plate, not putting more on.
Yeah, and when Kristin talks about weight, I think it's just so interesting to point out is that Kristin is a meticulous professional. I will definitely say that is one thing that I adore about her and appreciate. And she is not afraid to pay a lawyer to do some work in the background. And I think that's one thing we underestimate. And some of us don't. Like when we're in business, we're always thinking, who's going to sue me? Or how am I going to get in trouble one way or the other? And Kristin is somebody that is definitely going, if it can be validated by my legal team, I'm going to do it. So she's already done that work for you. And I think that is one piece for me, at least in my previous experience. I'm always thinking, do I have to push this up to legal? How much is that going to cost me? And now having some things that are validated, already being put in place and easy to plug and play, I think on that side of things, massive benefit, overall. So hope you guys learned a little bit about the basics of CLIA and CLIA waivers. For more information, Kristin will drop some nuggets inside of her channel after the show. So go in there and take a check on the lab services and point of care testing channel led by our very own Kristin Tallent. Kristin,
Yes,
anything as we head out?
Yes, I do. Just real quick, I'm just going to say that on Tuesday, February 7th, I am doing a free webinar. So if you need to go ahead and update your CLIA application to reflect some of these other tests that you want to add in, or if you are ready to dive in, we are doing a CLIA application tutorial step-by-step together, CLIA application tutorial 2.0. So we'll make sure we have the links for you that you can register for that.
And then also make sure you check out Kristin. She has started her own podcast on the Pharmacy Podcast Network. And so take a listen to that as well, which will dive into all kinds of other subjects. So if you want to know about point of care testing and what's happening in the lab world, you found the right person right here. So look forward to seeing you guys next week.
All right.